Well, the mainstream Western media is working overtime to make you feel guilty if you can't open your heart to all of these unaccompanied illegal aliens that are flooding across the border. Nancy Pelosi says they're all just sparks of the divine. And of course, that same type of rhetoric was being used to gather support for attacking the Assad regime. It's always the children who are used as political pawns. But strangely, the media is not only biased, but outright silent when it comes to the death of Palestinian children. Don't their innocent lives matter? Now, without getting into the historical argument between Israel and Palestine, they've been fighting over that for 1,000 years. I'm not going to solve that here. We just want to look at the blatant hypocrisy of how the mainstream media covers the deaths of some children versus others. Now here, take this bland headline from the New York Times. In the rubble of Gaza Seaside Cafe, hunt for victims who had come for soccer. Now, it's not the greatest headline, but it really doesn't convey the true story. But what's interesting here is that that headline was changed. And you can tell because they forgot to change the URL. The original headline read, "Missile at Beachside Gaza Cafe finds patrons poised for World Cup." Ah, la-di-da, it's almost fun, like a missile just found these people and then it walked into the bar and sat down and ordered a cocktail. No, an Israeli missile fired into a Gaza cafe and killed at least 8 innocent civilians. That's what actually happened there that day. Now, this cafe was one of more than 1,000 locations in Gaza that have been struck by the Israeli military since airstrikes began there early Tuesday morning. But you would not know that if you were just reading and gathering your information from the mainstream media or from this BBC headline that was also changed. Originally, it said, "Israel under renewed Hamas attack." And then, of course, if you follow the link, it says now that Israel steps up plans to stop rocket attacks from Gaza. And indeed, they have said they're going to now send ground troops in addition to the missiles that are being launched. Now, Mr. Sandwiches and teddy bears and soccer balls to all the unaccompanied illegal aliens. Reports it like this over at The Blaze. They say, rockets fired from Lebanon strike Israel as attacks by Gaza enter 4th day. Again, just portraying Israel as the victim. I thought we were supposed to open our hearts. Do the Palestinian deaths not matter? And also, ABC's Diane Sawyer was forced to issue an apology to her audience when on her Tuesday night broadcast, she mistakenly identified photos as showing Israelis dealing with the aftermath of an Israeli strike. Now, she apologized on Thursday night for the error, but just like with any retraction, the deed is already done. Most people aren't even paying attention anymore at that point. And did she use the opportunity to call on sympathy now for the Palestinians that were depicted in those photos, like she was originally calling for sympathy for the Israelis that she said were being shown reeling in those photos? No. And there you see this blatant hypocrisy. In all of these instances, Israel is the victim. No one is talking about the, at last count, 108 Palestinian civilians that have been killed in the last 4 days during these airstrikes. 23 of them have been children. Do those children not matter? And that is the question here. And of course, while we're talking about all of this fair and balanced media, I just want to point out that there was a really disturbing Facebook post that was posted by a member of the Israeli parliament. She is a lawmaker there, and she posted an unpublished article that was written by the deceased leader of the Jewish settlement movement, and he was also a close advisor to Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Now, this article asserts that the entire Palestinian people is the enemy, and it advocates genocide against the entire nation, including its elderly women, its cities and its villages, its property and its infrastructure, lest more little snakes be raised there. So now, before someone goes and calls me an anti-Semite and, just like the liberals, they say racist, so it stifles any debate about this. Can you imagine if a member of Congress posted something like this on their Facebook page? It's outrageous. Now, but we're not really hearing anyone talking about this being posted. Now, I'm not making any excuses for the fact that Hamas is firing rockets into Israeli civilian population, but they are firing trinkets. Now, Israel, they have a right to be fearful. They have a right to be angry. They have a right to retaliate. And I'm not saying anything against that, but the media is not being fair. They're not pointing out that Israel is a military superpower. They have armed F-15 fighter jets, Apache helicopters, missiles, drones, nuclear bombs, and the Iron Dome. And they are fighting against what David Cameron describes as a prison camp, firing almost entirely ineffective missiles. And this is the reason why we've seen so many deaths in Gaza versus 0 in Israel in the last 4 days. Now, this is kind of a call to all the people of the earth. We all need to be wary and watchful of our governments and how they are using us as pawns against each other to further their political means and causing this violence in our names. In America, we give $3 billion in aid annually to Israel, so this is our business. Now, all people of Earth need to watch how their governments are using them as props for war and causing all this violence in their name. And really, Israel, please be careful of losing the moral high ground. Here we have an article up at Infowars.com. It shows that it is not just Hamas, the terrorist group, who celebrates the loss of innocent lives. Here are people in Israel who are gathered around to watch the airstrikes as if it's like a fireworks show or something. Now, this is callous behavior, witnessing from afar the murder of children and other innocents. It's a prime example of the efficacy of brainwashing by the state. It's just like when Americans gathered around their TV sets to watch the shock and awe campaign that was unleashed on Baghdad in 2003. But here, what we are seeing is the state-run media choosing sides for us. We have to be careful of that. That's exactly what they are wanting to do, is gear us up for war. They're using us. Here, back to this article, Nazi Reich Marshal Hermann Göring said, "It is relatively easy to brainwash the masses." He said the common people, they don't want war, but they can always be brought to the bidding of the leaders. That is easy. All you have to do is tell them that they are being attacked and denounce the pacifists for lack of patriotism and exposing the country to danger. It works the same way in any country. And that is exactly what we are seeing right now. Now, I'm not sitting here telling you who's right and who's wrong, but what I am saying is just be careful of the media telling you what side to choose. We have to stand up to tyranny in all forms. Otherwise, this is what we get. We get the blood of dead children on our hands and an audience that's tuned in 24/7 to witness the deterioration of the human race.
The globalists have controlled the mainstream media for a long time, but now they're expanding, making the weaponization even more vicious and deceptive. All the major networks are state-run.
We are partnering this year with the NFL.
The NFL has become a political weapon against the Second Amendment and pushes Obamacare. MSNBC tells us that our children belong to the state.
We have to break through our kind of private idea that kids belong to their parents or kids belong to their families and recognize that kids belong to whole communities.
The brainwashing media machine has been turned up on high, and it's time for humanity to double down on the true people's media and strike back against the tyrants that are destroying our civilization with their lies and fraud. We are the resistance. You are the resistance. You are the info war. It is more important than ever to realize that we are not the alternative media. We are the true media. The establishment dinosaur press is dying.
We are in an information war, and we are losing that war.
Join us at InfoWarsNews.com and PrisonPlanet.tv. Members can share their memberships with up to 11 people. By subscribing, you will literally be buying war bonds in the info war to expand our operation in the face of the tyrants. Join us at PrisonPlanet.tv.